Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Right. These sessions, these Zoom sessions with this particular group, boy, it always gives such a boost. Hey Jocelyn, Hare Krishna. Haribo. Yeah, I attend these sessions online here. If anybody's interested, message me and I can send the link for the Zoom where these devotees are meeting and discussing everything, Wow. Last night, a few nights a week, they're going through the Bhagavatam. So they're in the second canto, chapter 10. And the beginning chapters of the Bhagavatam are about the creation of the material world, how Krishna does it. And who gets to go there and live there? Us. So the verse last night, we read a few verses. Starting with text 5. The science of God describes the incarnations of the personality of Godhead and his different activities, together with the activities of his great devotees. So when they were discussing that, it came out that people like to talk about other people, but they're wasting so much time talking about movie stars, politicians, because it has no permanent, lasting benefit. It's just, they're wasting their time. So that was the gist of the discussion. It went on for a while about it, and so that the science of God describes incarnations of the personality of Godhead and his different activities, together with the activities of his great devotees. So that's worthy of attention. Krishna's incarnations, his pastimes and activities, and his devotees and associates. Because that has permanent, lasting, eternal benefit. So the tendency is there in people to talk about somebody or something, movies, television, everything, but it's a waste of time. They won't get them anywhere. They're just killing time. So then they read another verse, text 6. When the living entity, along with his conditional living tendency, merges with the mystic lying down of Mahavishnu, it's called the winding up of the cosmic manifestation. So at the end of it's described here that when the Lord exhales, all the universes are created. They come out like little bubbles from the pores of this transcendental body when he exhales. And all the universes come out. And then when he inhales, they're all come back in. So that exhalation is like trillions and trillions and trillions of years if you could actually measure it. but it does get wound up and then stays unmanifest. And the living entities, they merge with the Lord's body at that time. They're not active either. It's like everybody goes to sleep. It's called the winding up of the cosmic manifestation. Liberation is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after giving up the changeable material, gross, and subtle bodies. So liberation means you're free from that. You're not in that situation anymore. You're expanding out, you're coming back in. You're in a whole nother creation, spiritual manifestation that is never wound up and never wound down. So here's more discussion about the two types of living entities, Prabhupada's purport. Most of them are ever liberated, which is called nitya muktas. They never go through any of that. While some of them are ever conditioned. So there are two types of living entities. Some are eternally liberated, and some, for all intent and purposes, are ever conditioned and have to go through this. The ever conditioned souls are apt to develop a mentality of lording over material nature. Therefore, this material cosmic creation is manifested to give the ever conditioned souls two kinds of facilities. Okay, so there's an opportunity there. Prabhupada says, the conditioned soul can act according to his tendency to lord it over, but he's given a chance to come back to Godhead, to stop doing that. So after the winding up of the cosmic manifestation, most of the conditioned souls merge into the existence of the Mahavishnu, personal form of the Lord, and they're asleep with him in his mystic slumber, and they will be recreated again when there will be the next creation, when he exhales again. But some of the conditioned souls who follow the transcendental sound, how important is sound, in the form of Vedic literatures, and are thus able to go back to Godhead, attain spiritual and original bodies after quitting the gross material and subtle material bodies. Sound. So we're chanting Hare Krishna. This is a sound vibration. We're giving our life breath when we chant. What is more valuable than your life breath? If you can't breathe, forget it. Body's finished. You have to be able to breathe. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Sacrificing the life breath into the transcendental sound vibration, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, it's the great benediction for humanity at large. It's this Maha Mantra, this sound vibration. Krishna says he put all his energies, this transcendental potency, in his holy names alone. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, they read that first and they discussed it some more. And then someone asked a question. They asked, it was a challenge, because they wanted to hear some discussion. Anyway, Hare Krishna. And the question that the devotee asked was a challenge. He said, you're saying all these things, but you can't verify any of that. I mean, it sounds very interesting, but how can you verify it? In other words, scientifically. How can you verify that? Whereas scientists, they're verifying using facts and test tubes and telescopes. They verify what they're saying. And for the most part, they're saying they don't find any spiritual dimension. And they're verifying with formulas and experiments. They're not finding any spiritual dimension, so it can't be verified. All there is matter. So then the discussion took off from there. And I found it very refreshing. And it's the way they were discussing was they were using Prabhupada, because this Prabhupada, he spent a lot of time discussing with the disciples. In class, he would give the very authoritative but amongst the disciples, he would discuss, and they would argue back and forth in great detail about this kind of knowledge that the scientists are contaminating everything with. And he was pointing out how in the schools, this is what's taught. But occasionally, when they find out that it wasn't exactly right, then they change the textbooks. And they say, well, we used to think it was this, but now we know it's this. But they don't really know. And they actually can't verify anything. It's all stories, people's ideas, creative imaginations, speculation, theories. They can't verify anything that life comes from matter. They can't verify that. There's a devotee, he passed away, which is such a shame. He was a great genius, mathematical genius, very dear to Srila Prabhupada, Sariputta. And he managed to write several books. Prabhupada wanted him to, asked him to. He wanted the devotees who had scientific education to show scientifically, not to prove Krishna consciousness scientifically. You can't prove it scientifically. This is knowledge that's handed down from saints and sages throughout antiquity, from the beginning of the universe, Lord Brahma, Krishna to Lord Brahma. You can't verify it scientifically. It doesn't work like that. It's handed down and they're all in agreement all the way back to the creation of the universe. They all agree. And all the scriptures are there. So that's our authority. But their way of proving things is the scientific method, mixing chemicals. So Sariputta managed to show, and I just got a link to a site where all his books are, and I definitely want to take a look, how it's mathematically impossible for life to come from matter. It's actually impossible. It's impossible. He shows scientifically, mathematically. So the way to defeat this kind of, what I was seeing last night in this discussion, the way to defeat it is not to try to defend your position, but to smash theirs. It's like, we have our authorities, and this is our science. That's your science, and it doesn't work. And I was like, wow, yeah, that just takes Krishna to a whole nother level. It's like, yeah, you don't have to defend yourself because it can't be verified. That's not the way the science works. You don't verify it with formula. That is, you don't waste your time with that. It comes down from saints and sages unchanged. The way to deal with that is to show that their so-called verification is no verification at all. They don't have a leg to stand on. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to see that kind of discussion go on. So like this group that meets, they discuss different things. That was what was on the plate last night. And wow, Hare Krishna. Now, I just feel so refreshed hearing that, because it was presented, well, how can you prove it? All there is matter. You can't prove this spirit. You can't prove there's that dimension. It's just matter. And you're left hanging there like, oh, yeah, how do we prove it? Oh my God, how do you prove? You don't need proof. It's not proved like that. It's realized knowledge coming down. It's realized. Hare Krishna. And their so-called proofs are completely useless. There's no proof at all. Smokes and mirrors. That was really great. It was a really great session. And not only that, but it was presented so nicely and discussed calmly, intelligently, and drawing on conversations that Prabhupada had discussing these things and using Prabhupada's arguments and examples. And wow, jam-packed hour. So if anybody wants, I can give the link. Message me or let me know if you want the link to be able to sit in, because I never know what they're going to do. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday they read from Bhagavatam and discuss. And on Thursday, anything goes. It's an open session. Anyone, that's where I dropped my bomb, why, I dropped my why bomb on them. And they did very well with it. Yeah, it was interesting how that unfolded. Yeah. So anybody you can do anything. Thursday, anything goes. But I tell you, the devotee that's, providing this platform is really a brave soul. He's good. He's like a home run king, No matter what you throw at him, he's able to, it gets dealt with nicely, and the conclusion is always Krishna. In spirit and truth. There's nobody smashing anybody except the scientists and their false theories. But Krishna, even that is done lovingly and in a way that, please surrender your nonsense kind of way. It's not a matter of might makes right in there at all. It's really cool. So that was that. Oh, Krishna. So I'm still working on the why thing. My speculations. Like, why did okay, I'm created. I'm in that class of living entities that's vulnerable to being enticed by trying to lord it over the material nature and enjoy sensually and subtly. I'm the Lord and Master of all I survey. Everything is meant for my pleasure, so on and so forth. I'm one of those that's vulnerable to that. And so my why question is, why does Krishna have a class of living entities like that? So that kind of got answered when it's really taken an interesting turn in that, do I dare say this? But it's actually a preparation for Vraj to learn this unconditional love. Here I am going through these different species, and in this life I'm even accepting this Krishna. Okay, there's God, there's Mahavishnu lying down, okay, the universes are coming out, okay, I'm accepting that. But here I am, I still have to deal with old age, disease, death, imperfect senses, bad smells, insects biting, all this stuff. But we know the prayers of the great devotees are, no matter what situation, no matter what the situation, I just want to remember you. You're always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally, whatever the situation. So what better training could there be for Raj Leela? The topmost. And of all Raj Leela, Srimati Radharani, in her mood of separation. You're always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. A moment is like 12 years or more, and tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain. This is Krishna himself wanting to experience what it's like, this unconditional love in the mood of separation. So what better setup? There isn't any better setup. It's a setup. And he's come to give that, the highest thing, to the most fallen. So when I look at it like that, I get a little bit of relief, Okay, bring it on, All right. Okay, I see the purpose. I see a useful purpose. I can accept this as for beneficial for Krishna consciousness. Krishna. But then I was looking at some other stuff. Okay, Lance is here. I guess he's feeling better. He says, yes, this is a learning planet. We're being prepared for the real planet with Krishna. I believe this. Way to go. Way to go. Jai. Hare Krishna. If you see like that, you can't lose. How can you lose? It's like Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare! Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So then I was thinking, because good old mind, let's see if we can't dig around a little bit into something else. So I was thinking, well, if I was with Krishna ever, in the spiritual world, if I ever was there, some Vaishnavas, there's different schools of thought on this. Some say we were never there, we've never been there, we've always just been on the edge. But Prabhupada seems to indicate when he says back to Godhead, when we go home, he seems to indicate that we were there at one point and we slipped somehow. Lord Chaitanya says, somehow or other, I've fallen into this ocean of birth and death, material sense gratification, birth and death. Somehow or other. So what's that somehow or other? What is that somehow or other? What is it? How does that work? Like, one day I wake up and decided I hated Krishna, that I wanted to be Krishna, and I was going to show him, and I slammed the door in his face and dove into the material energy. Is that what I did? I got mad at him and I left? No. Or, I'm thinking it's a little more less dramatic than that. I was thinking the possibility is familiarity. In other words, being with Krishna, but taking him too familiar, like kind of getting bored with him, if that's possible. I was just thinking, like, I want something more. Kind of like when a man and a woman are married, and one of them is like a little bored in the relationship. Like, it's a relationship where each one is doing their duties, maintaining the family situation, but one of them gets like a little bored or a little restless, wants some more, something more sensually. It's just a little boring. It's not that they don't love their wife or their husband. They do. kind of, sort of. But it's just like, you want something more. I was thinking it might be something like that. That being in the spiritual world but having a relationship with Krishna that's kind of like duty bound or official, and it's just not enough. So venturing out for a little excitement, seeing what you can get into, a little kind of excitement. And Hare Krishna, you end up in the arms of the prostitute. Hare Krishna, material Maya Devi. Hare Krishna. Oh, come here, you want a little fun? Okay, here you go. Kick in the head, kick in the butt, punch in the nose. All right, you having fun now? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm looking at it, and I think it's maybe a little more like that. Just kind of. So that would make sense that by experiencing this relationship with the prostitute Maya, the witch Maya, going to a higher level of appreciation for Krishna than maybe I had before. Like, oh, he's God, yeah, he's cool, but so going to a higher level kind of fits. Yeah, there's some stories about that. Bhakti Vinod. I really do want to read that. Gopa Kumar, I think his name was, one of the cowherd boys, who, he's a cowherd boy, he's with Krishna, but he's looking at the material energy and he's curious. He wants, it's like, well, what else is there? I mean, yeah, this is fun being with you, Krishna, playing leapfrog and running through the forest with the cows and swimming in the Yamuna and running through the forest and picking the fruits off the trees. And yeah, it's kind of fun. But what's that over there? It's something a little more. Let me see what's going on. And then Krishna fulfills his desire. I think he was looking into the river, and he saw his own reflection, and he fell in or something. I have to read it. And it's what happens to him and how he comes running back to Krishna. Comes running back. Hare Krishna. So I'm going to take a look at that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Anyway, it's fresh on my mind last night, and then also thinking about, it's not like you fall into the material world, you're automatically a demon. There are demons, but most people, they're just, just ignorant, they be covered over and strayed away from their relationship with Krishna, looking for something more. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A few more rounds to chant, so maybe I'll come back on later. Help, Mr. Wizard, help. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. God help us all, man. God help us all. You know, this. I was thinking about this unconditional love. It's like the Christians have that idea. They have that. But they have it coming from God to the fallen souls. Like God's love is unconditional. Unconditional love. And if you just accept that, you know, but they have this unconditional love is coming from God. The Vaishnav has this unconditional love coming from God. They've got that. But then they also supply the unconditional love of the living entity for God. You're always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So it's a relationship, unconditional. Unconditional love, unconditional love. 100%, 100%. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I think that's implied in the Christian theology, that God's love is unconditional and all we have to do is accept it. I think it's implied there. It's implied. But in the Vaishnava theology, it's in great detail, glorified and expanded and discussed. So it takes it a little step further. Big step further. All right. What's Lance got here? It says, Krishna lets us experience these ideas we have, but then we need him to bring us back. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Yeah. I was seeing how when we're chanting, it's not possible to stop the mind. It's not possible. You can't stop the mind. But it is possible to teach the mind to think thoughts that are favorable for chanting Hare Krishna. It's possible to train the mind so that when you're chanting Hare Krishna, the mind is going to want to do something. So to train the mind to be active in such a way that it's favorable for chanting Hare Krishna. You can offer prayers. The mind can learn to offer prayers. One prayer could be, Dear mind, please think thoughts that are favorable for chanting Hare Krishna. And just keep repeating that prayer and keep chanting. You know, make the mind the friend, the helper for the mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Well, just some thoughts. I have to go chant some more. Hare Krishna.